When did you realize it was like
about JFK?
or like when did you see the length of the song? Because that's
I was like murder most foul, and then I was like, oh my god, is this about JFK? And I'm like, is this about JFK the whole time? And I didn't realize that it was 16 minutes long.
I contain a multitude. I ain't no false prophet, version of you. I've made up my mind. Black rider, time, religion, it's just what I need. Mother of muses, cross the Rubicon on the 14th day, way down in Key West, the day they blew out the brains of the king.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Spin Club. My name is David Stewart. I'm the host of this online album listening club where I bring people in to tell me about their favorite records, and we learn about them along the way. Today, my guest is Alex Leeds. Give it up for Alex Leeds, everybody. Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a comedian and a artist. I do animation as well.
You're the Renaissance man of the Cincinnati comedy scene. You're an animator, author. You're doing all the things.
Yes.
Also, most recently, lawyer defending Nickelback in the People versus Nickelback, which is on YouTube now or will be next week, depending on when this episode comes out.
Yeah.
But welcome to the club.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Tell the people what we're talking about today.
So today we're talking about Bob Dylan's album Rough and Rowdy Ways. It's his most recent album of original music. Came out right in the middle of the COVID pandemic.
I love pandemic records because they're a fascinating timestamp of that era.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite albums, or it's not even an album, it's an EP from the band Pup. They did their EP called This Place Sucks Ass.
It's very timely.
Yeah, super timely.
Yeah.
It's the best. So I'm excited to dive into that more. But for those who have not been here before, there are three main segments to the show. There is On a Pedestal, where we're going to talk about the highlights of the record. There's On a Spit, which is where we're going to talk about the lowlights that I perceived during the record. And then there's On a Turntable, which is where I'm going to dive in and talk to Alex a little bit more about his life in sort of like using the album as a backdrop for that conversation. If you stick around to the end, there is a mini game that I like to play with my guests. So, retention play. We like those here. But without further ado, I do have a small section that I start with these days called Liner Notes, which is the simple question, why? So why did you want to bring this album to the club, and why would you want to talk about it with me?
This is probably my favorite album, especially since it's come out in 2020. It's probably the album I've listened to the most in the last 5 years. Probably my favorite Bob Dylan album.
Wow. Okay.
Which, Bob Dylan's known for his like 60s output and everything. But this album came out, it got great rave reviews from music outlets and stuff. And I think to the general public, like old Bob Dylan is not really known or like appreciated enough.
Like old as an age?
Yeah. Like modern day Bob Dylan. Like you go see him in concert, he's not like a retro, like a nostalgia act. He plays his new stuff, and the songs he plays like that you might recognize, he plays them in a completely different tempo, or he'll change lyrics up. It doesn't sound like a song that it did on the record.
Interesting. So like it kind of lives and breathes, almost like jam bandy kind of.
Yeah, the songs, they live and breathe. I think he's still an artist. He's not, ever rested on his laurels and has always changed things up. And I think this album is peak post 2000s Bob Dylan.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know he's like a very prolific artist. So for the record, I'm not a Bob Dylan guy. It was funny because I was talking about this album out loud at the comedy club, and someone turned to me and they were like, Alex Leeds. And I was like, yes, that's who's coming on the show.
Yeah.
And so this is my entry point to Bob Dylan.
Okay.
Which is fascinating because I only know him as jokes.
Yeah.
Like people, like
People do his voice.
Yeah, this voice and like Charlie Day doing like the Spiders song on like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And so this is my entry point, and it's fascinating.
It is I was saying before we started. I don't know if this is the album I would recommend to somebody who never heard Bob Dylan before.
Yeah,
but it's I still think it's a great record, like top to bottom, in my opinion.
Sure. And like I just thought like it is really interesting because like when I listen to music, especially for like the show, I listen intentionally because like I'm not here to yuck people's yums. Like On a Spit is more like so that I can like mention the weird stuff that comes up, because like every album has strange moments, even if they're like 10 out of 10 records. I'm like, what? Yeah. Like the out of pocket stuff.
Yeah.
And there's no shortage of like out of pocket things.
Yeah.
In this album.
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine listening to this and being like not having any kind of
like formal context.
Correct. Yeah.
I was just like, all right, let's give this a rip.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because like he was a very prolific guy. Like his output has been wild.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so we'll dive into that a little bit later. But so let's rip into On a Pedestal. Let's get started with the highlights. So usually I start this section off by asking my guests, like, since you're sharing music, I know when I'm sharing music that I want to like think of the things that I hope someone picks up on. Okay. So like, is there anything that you hoped I would pick up on when being like, hey, let's listen to this record?
I would say that the song the album is most famous for is the 17-minute finale called Murder Most Foul, which is, about, on its surface, is about the Kennedy assassination, but I think more so it's a commentary on, I don't know if that's the word I want to use, commentary, but it's more relevant to modern day America. Like how Americans respond to tragedy, or big tragic events, which was relevant. He didn't. It came out during COVID, but it wasn't like it had been recorded prior to when COVID started to become a thing. But the song, it's a 17-minute song, so it's not something you can like. It's a song you have to sit down and just listen. You have to like dedicate 17 minutes to like listen to it and like take in the whole context of, he's mentioning a bunch of artists, movie stars, famous singers. And like I said, I think, in the context of like the Kennedy assassination, but I think the larger picture is of how Americans react to like tragic events.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely. So like I picked up on like there's got to be deeper levels to this. Yeah. Because otherwise, if you come at it like point blank, like without any sort of like what does this mean outside of the actual words being said? Yeah. Like it's just kind of weird. It's just out of nowhere. And like I know of Bob Dylan, and I know that he's like a very like prolific songwriter and like very good at it, to the point where all of his covers, like the people that cover him, all those covers absolutely slap. Oh, yeah. So like there's like no question in my mind that Bob Dylan is a good songwriter. But it did like bring up like fiction versus autobiographical is something that I like toyed with. Yeah. Like I was like, some of these songs on this record seemed like, I was like, are we talking about something real to you, or is it like kind of like behind the veil of like some fiction, and he's just trying to make a broader point behind that fiction? Yeah. Is that like, because like as like the Bob Dylan expert in this room right now,
I would think he does do that. There's another song off of his album in 2012, Tempest. It's the song's called Tempest. It's about the Titanic sinking. It's another. It's not as long, but he mixes like the actual Titanic sinking with like the movie, like some. He mentions like Leonardo DiCaprio in it, so it's kind of like the melding of the fiction and the autobiographical. Yeah. As well.
I also noticed like there's no shortage of like world building in like his songs, and like like that, like the sort of like melding of fiction and nonfiction kind of like speaks to that a little bit, where like he's just like a creative mind with like not a ton of barriers, where he's like, oh, just because this thing's real and this thing isn't doesn't mean they can't coexist together. Yeah. And I think that like I like it makes it so descriptive and like provocative, like almost like I won't say Tolkien levels of like descriptive where we're like, you know, blasting chapters long
Yeah, yeah.
like levels of like descriptors of the Shire, but like it is like I forget the line that was like I was like, oh, this like really paints a picture, but like he's very descriptive. And that's something else that I picked up on was like the descriptive nature of like his world building.
Yeah, he's also known for taking lines from like old literature or like different things and like repurposing them in like songs as well.
It almost feels like a collage.
Yeah,
Like if someone were making like a vision board,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
out of magazine clippings, that's just him, but it's like with words.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, I think.
Yeah, that's it was really interesting. And then what else did I have? Yeah, it was all very compelling. It was like because like it's like it makes you think because like there was no like it was like these aren't songs that you're gonna be like sit down and be like this is a bop. Like, this
Yeah.
thing's
Oh
a
yeah,
jam.
yeah. This is not. Yeah.
Yeah, like this isn't a jam. This is someone being expressive, and like in this case, he's like what 80 when he
Yeah, I think probably around 80 when it.
around 80. So it's like the descriptive words of an 80-year-old man who's lived quite the life.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of people not to go off topic from the lyrics, but like his voice, I think a lot of people don't like Bob Dylan's voice. A lot of people say he can't sing. I disagree. I think especially old Bob Dylan, it's that weathered, like you said, he's lived a life, and I think the voice is representative of the lyrics in the authenticity.
Yeah,
like
that's fair. He's
but I know
it's not. I
know it's not a voice that everybody would like.
And that like attributes like that like sort of like is he a performer versus like a writer, which I have written down like for later, but
yeah, like
writer versus performer, because like again all of the covers that anyone does of his songs absolutely rip, so like there's something there. Yeah, but like if you take like a Jimi Hendrix and like for All Along the Watchtower, like you add a little spice to it and it's just like an absolute smash.
Yeah, and he kind of plays that when he does that, like after that became big, he kind of started playing it because he did that. It was kind of like a minor song on an album, and the story that I read is like Jimi Hendrix, I guess, would carry around Bob Dylan lyrics in his pocket.
Interesting.
Like and he covered that song, and like I said, it was like a minor song on a kind of a minor album in his like discography, but he became this like big hit out of nowhere, and then it became like after Jimi Hendrix died, Bob Dylan kind of started playing it more because it's like an acoustic song how Bob Dylan originally sang it, and then it's become like this wild electric long guitar solo kind of song.
Interesting. Like that kind of makes me feel like Bob Dylan understands that once he makes something, it's no longer really his anymore. Like because like I know a lot of artists think that way. Like it's like as soon as it's in the world, it's no longer mine, it's the listener's, and like the listener does what like, and so like it's kind of cool that he's able to like evolve with it. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's like a really humble thing to do for an artist. Like he could have stuck to his guns and been like, fuck Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, yeah. But instead he's like, no, that's a good evolution of this song.
I think from what all the stuff I've read and seen about Bob Dylan, I think he kind of considers like the songs on the album are just like the first draft of the song, and then like during the live performance is really when you figure out what the songs.
It's almost like he's a gardener.
Yeah.
Like the seeds are like the album version, and then like he watches it grow and like tends to the garden as he sees fit. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, like the humility that goes into that as an artist is crazy. Yeah. But so the next question I usually bring up now is, what are your top 3 songs off of this record? If you have it, I know for some people when they bring their favorite album, they're like, "Oh man, it's impossible."
I think my favorite is going to be "Murder Most Foul."
Okay,
I think that's my favorite. I think Key West is my second favorite, and then the third would probably be I Contain Multitudes. Yeah, I think those are my top 3.
Okay, my top 3, like, and like a lot of it was like kind of based on most compelling on like the first listen. Yeah, but also like the musicality of certain stuck out to me more. Yeah. So like mine with Black Rider was like one of my top. I was like, because it was like really compelling. And then False Prophet, I thought was interesting as well. Yeah. And like kind of got into the more like sort of bluesy sound. And then like Goodbye Jimmy Reed and My Own Version of You, both sort of like.
Oh yeah, Goodbye Jimmy Reed. That was on. That song was on like Barack Obama's like end of year.
Oh, nice.
And,
yeah.
like that year it came out.
Because like those were getting real bluesy.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
Really traditional bluesy sounding and like really well like produced. Like just sounded like really clean, which is not what we're used to with Bob Dylan, based on the very little I had heard up until then. But like Black Rider was interesting, and like I agree that like your picks are like should be up there, but I honestly reserved them for On a Spit because I had a lot of questions about because like they were like compelling in weird ways. Like everything, like the two that you said, the like the JFK song and then like I Contain Multitudes had like a lot of out of pocket.
Yeah, a lot of phrases just like I feel like coming at you out of nowhere.
Yeah,
you know?
and I was like, well, these are a little out of pocket.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Goodbye Jimmy Reed, False Prophet. Do you think he was talking about himself in False Prophet? Like,
I think you could argue that. I think, you know, because I mean, it's kind of like the topic of the movie that's coming out.
Right.
I haven't seen it yet, but you know, I know the story where like Bob Dylan started out as like this folk singer, and you know, like the folk scene kind of like raised him up to be this protest singer, like he was going to be the you know, the voice of a generation, and he just like kind of like didn't want that label, like kind of like went electric, like stopped playing folk songs or like stopped playing acoustic guitar, went electric, and then like, you know, wouldn't show up to like, you know, protests like during like the 60s. Like he kind of has this like, some people think of him as like this, you know, civil rights icon or something. I mean, he did play at like the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech. He was like an opener for that. But he wasn't really like, you know, he never really played any like anti-Vietnam, or he wasn't really part of that scene at that point. He was, I think, uncomfortable with the idea that he was like this, you know, prophet. Yeah. Or so I think you could say it's about him.
Interesting. Like I just wondered if it was like an, you know, 80-year-old self-reflection of like, was I really all these things people hold me up to be? Yeah. But I mean, that's for him to decide.
Right. Sometimes you can't really. It's hard to get a read on him.
Yeah, in general, I would agree. Yeah, it's like impossible to get a read on this guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole group of people call themselves Dylanologists, which like who are like publish books on like his lyrics and everything, his life. And
how many of those have you read? Like, have you read any of those? Like,
I've not read. I've read like, I mean, I read he wrote like one autobiography himself, but I've not read too many like, you know, third party kind of books on him. You know, I've read one, I think. Okay. But not too many.
Did any of it feel like it really, like you're like, oh shit, was any of it really revelatory to you?
I mean, the one I read was more so like just about his life and what he was doing around like the 60s, 70s. Okay. Like nothing too revelatory that I remember.
Sure. All right. Well, yeah. Because like I wonder, because you're like a self-proclaimed, you know, Bob Dylan stan. I wonder how deep it goes. How far are we going?
I mean, I've seen him in concert, I think 17 times.
Oh wow,
something like that.
Of those concerts, was there like a peak one where it was like this one's the absolute best? And like what made it different / better than others?
Maybe the one I saw him in Kettering, Ohio, at the Phrase Pavilion. I want to say 2017 or 2018, I think, something like that. Okay. And I was front row, so that was probably. And I mean, the concert was great, but I think being in the front row was just, you know, made it so much better. Just like being able to see him up close, like that close, like. Because the Phrase Pavilion is kind of like this, like not Riverbend, but like the PNC Pavilion that we have in Cincinnati. So it's a smaller venue.
And when was this?
2017, 2018, yeah.
Okay. So like probably during like the recording process of this album, like
probably, yeah. I mean, I've seen the first time I saw him was 2006, so I was like, I think a sophomore or a junior in high school. Okay. But I think being front row really, The cool thing about a Bob Dylan concert to me is like there's so many small changes between each show that
Right.
you kind of got it. Like it's a concert you got to pay attention to. It's not a concert you go to like
Vibe out.
right.
Yeah. Okay. So like, yeah, the more you talk about it, the more it sounds like jam band culture.
Yeah.
You know, people who go see Fish or Grateful Dead.
Yeah,
you know.
well, he did an album he toured with the Grateful Dead. They put a live album out together.
okay.
So there is some crossover between. I mean, this was like in the '80s. Some
Yeah.
like Dylan and it's called Dylan and the Dead, but there is like Grateful Dead and Bob Dylan crossover.
Yeah, because like it sounds like the way you talk about how it evolves over time, it all sounds really jam bandy.
Yeah, yeah. And his tours, he's been touring like, I mean, besides COVID, but his tour has been called like unofficially called the Never Ending Tour.
Oh yeah,
And he's been like since the late '80s, he's played like at least 100 shows every year.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan, the road dog.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can, yeah. And there's like, tape traders. Like there's a whole website where like people like trade bootleg recordings and all that stuff. So
yeah.
there's a lot of, I think, crossover with that.
Do you think there's the same amount of do you think the same type of people who listen to jam bands listen to Bob Dylan? Like, cause like I know like jam bands, like a lot of times it's like, I'm gonna go get high at this show and enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
But like you were also saying that like it's like a show you have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And I think those two
I don't
things don't
know.
exist.
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, like I said, I've been to 17 shows, and I know there's a lot of people that go and see. Because, like, if Bob Dylan were to come to Cincinnati, a lot of times he'll, like, hit Cincinnati, Dayton, Indianapolis, Louisville. He'll, like, he'll cover everything. And I know people go to multiple shows. I could see some crossover, but I think the concerts are probably definitely different, different situations, different vibes.
Does he have visuals at these shows, or is it just him?
No.
Oh, wow.
And he doesn't. The thing he doesn't like talk to the audience at all. He doesn't even like stand in the center of the stage. He gets a lot of people don't like it, but
Sure.
he's kind of like off to the side at his piano.
Oh, okay.
But no, it's dark. It's like
It's just a guy out here singing.
yeah. I mean, he's got a full band with him.
Yeah.
And they're great, but like it's not a. It's just like the music kind of thing.
Yeah, that was like reminds me of like Maynard James Keenan of Tool. Like he doesn't want to be in the front and center of the band either, and now he just stands on like a platform in the back in the dark.
Yeah, yeah, just like that.
Yeah, just he's like the music speaks for itself. Like,
Yeah,
I am not the music.
yeah.
Okay, so like we talked about peak moments like at concerts. Do you have a peak moment on this record? Because like usually when I'm listening to something that I like truly love, I'm like.
Yeah.
There's like a moment where I'm like, this is it. This is what I'm waiting for.
I mean, I go back to Murder Most Foul.
Yeah.
I think, especially the first time I heard it, it was like, this is crazy.
Yeah,
it's like,
it's 17 minutes long.
But I've listened to it. I mean, I probably listened to that one song I think on just on Spotify, probably 30 or 40 times.
Oh, wow.
I just get goosebumps still just listening to it, like the build up to like, telling the whole JFK, just how he puts it, what are some of the lyrics? Left field is where his plane touched down, but he never would get back up off the ground. That magic bullet of yours has gone to my head.
Yeah.
Like so many like lyrics that just give me goosebumps, and then just like the ending where he goes to like play, like where he's just like listing off a bunch of different old musicians to play, like and then ending it with like play Murder Most Foul, and then it just kind of comes all together.
Yeah.
I think that just listening to that, having that experience, which I can have every time I listen to it, like if I sit down and listen to it, I'll have the same experience every time. It's not really gotten old.
Yeah. Because like I mentioned this before we started, but like that song to me felt like my mom bringing out her scrapbook of like the JFK murder. I was like, it was such a huge deal. And I wonder if like my 2025 goggles have like made large events like that seem smaller, because it feels like these days in the last 25 years or so we've seen so many big events of that caliber that like now we're like feeling a little like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for, like desensitized to them. Like, and what about JFK do you think was like enough to like, he's like, there's 17 minutes.
I mean, I still think even though there have been big events, I still think the Kennedy assassination is probably I mean, at least at the 20th century, it's the defining event. Bob Dylan was alive for it, and I think anybody that was alive for it, that is the defining event. But I think if you look at all of, at least American history of 20th century, which Bob Dylan is, I think I think he's still relevant as an artist today, but the majority of his output and his career was in the 20th century.
Yeah. What do you think made the Kennedy assassination so much more like large than like say Reagan, or like the assassination attempt of Reagan versus, or like even Donald Trump?
I mean, JFK died.
Yeah, well, first of all, he died. Yeah, I understand that. Like, it was like brutal. Like his head literally exploded on television.
I think the youth of him and what he represented to America, and having it be like ripped away. I think, because I think just that man to be killed in that way at that time.
Yeah. Must have left a mark on people.
Yeah, I think just what he represented post-World War II, America is now like along with Russia, but like America is a major player on the stage. We have this young president, and then to just...
like, bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, don't worry, we have a replacement already in mind.
Yeah.
Because like that's a line from the song.
It is a line. Yeah, I pulled up the lyrics. That's what I was looking at. That's another great lyric.
Because it does kind of speak to like the replaceable nature of literally everyone, even though JFK was like kind of defined as irreplaceable. They're like, well, don't worry, we got one anyway.
There's so many. I mean, this is a long song, so I can't.
No, don't worry. I'm lazy in my editing, but I'm
okay.
I'm
not
lazy enough.
I was I was reading the lyrics, and then it started playing the song in my head, so I couldn't. And I was like,
No worries. But yeah, man, that's like, I don't know. I wonder if we'll like, despite all the things we've seen, I'm curious to see if like as we get older in our old age, if there's someone like an artist our age now who makes like a song about like the 2008 financial crisis.
Not 9/11.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I was in the second grade when 9/11 happened.
Okay.
So like I'm a little too young to like understand 9/11 in the like if I were to become like a prolific artist, like I don't think my like core thing would be 9/11.
Like in like I was in the 7th grade, but like, for example, let's say like in 2070 or something, Dave Matthews comes out with this 20-minute 9/11 song.
I mean, yeah, I'd probably find it fucking interesting. We found like I don't know. I found the movie Dumb Money. That was like like I found that interesting, and that
I love that movie.
That only happened 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So like I wonder if there's an artist out there that's just like, man, I'm gonna pen the sickest song about the 2008 financial crisis.
Yeah.
It's like all those homes in Florida sitting.
People don't even give that. I feel like that event enough credit. Like
for shaping where we're at now.
Yeah.
Well, if they didn't learn the first time, they might learn soon enough again.
Yeah.
So that wraps up the On a Pedestal, talking about the highlights of the record for me.
Okay.
I didn't talk about my peak moment. My peak moment happened very early in the record.
Okay.
It's when it's in I Contain Multitudes, where he's like, I'm like Anne Frank. And
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
that's fucking hilarious. And I was like, bang, peak moment. And it happened very early.
Anne Frank like Indiana Jones.
Yeah. I was like, what?
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that here in a second, because I'm going to circle back to that topic for On a Spit, which is where we talk about the lowlights or like the kind of out-of-pocket moments of the record. My first one is like the odd lines, such like, I'm just like Anne Frank.
Yeah.
I am not versed enough in like Bob Dylan culture to be like, what do you think he means by that? And he can come up with even kind of like a correct read on what he means about that. Like, what do you think as like?
I mean, if you just look at it as a literal, like, because the line is like, I'm like Anne Frank, like Indiana Jones, like them British bad boys, the Rolling Stones, and the song is I Contain Multitudes, which I think is a line from Shakespeare. I mean, if you look at it just literally, like the line Anne Frank, I mean, Bob Dylan is Jewish. He comes. You could say, I guess, if you just, like I said, take it literally, the combination of Anne Frank, Indiana Jones, and the Rolling Stones is kind of, I guess, maybe how he sees himself.
As,
If you think he's
iconic
singing,
characters,
yeah, like as maybe the Anne Frank represents his youth, and maybe his more spiritual side. Obviously, the Rolling Stones, you could compare, make an obvious comparison to the musician part of his life. And then, Indiana Jones, what is he? He's an explorer. He's always looking for something like, or maybe like because Bob Dylan, I guess, or Indiana Jones always like is uncovering the past and finding these lost relics, which I think Bob Dylan does a lot. Like previous to this album, he recorded 3 albums of Frank Sinatra covers.
Oh, interesting.
And somebody asked him, he did an interview, somebody asked him, like, why are you covering these songs? And he said something like, I don't think we're covering them, I think we're uncovering them. He said,
oh, okay,
I think a lot
there's
of these,
more to them than
yeah,
people.
like there's a lot of people have, like these standards people have sang forever, but, what else is there out of these songs? I think that's what he wanted to get. And I think that could be an interpretation.
It feels like almost Great Depression era people talking about food.
Yeah,
It's like there's more meat on those bones. You aren't eating enough. Like
exactly.
Yeah, interesting. Because he wasn't a Great Depression. He wasn't alive for the Great Depression, was he?
No, he was. I think born like right after World War II. Maybe during World War II, 1940. I think.
Yeah, well, maybe his parents
something like that.
Yeah, his parents kind of instilled that. Like,
oh yeah, I mean they were definitely Great Depression
for sure.
era.
Because I always wonder about like how people become the way they are. Like,
yeah,
like why talk about art?
Yeah.
It's like,
but I think definitely the Judaism, like growing up with especially post World War II, like it had to have been having a big effect on who he is.
Yeah. And then so the other thing that I found like kind of like out of pocket, we've already talked about it at length, is like just the song Murder Most Foul in general.
Yeah.
It's like really kind of out of left field if you're me.
Yeah.
Coming like it was like because like it is like the way Apple Music puts it out there, like it's like the entire second half of the record.
Yeah.
Because like it the track listing is like 1 through 9, and then like it goes back to 1.
Yeah.
And then that's it. Like,
yeah,
that's
it's
like
almost like a separate piece. Like,
yeah.
It's almost like you have the album and the album ends on Key West, and then there's this second part, or like it's its own thing almost.
Yeah. Which is like 16 minutes is an incredible amount of time to dedicate to
When
that.
did you realize it was like
about JFK?
or like when did you see the length of the song? Because that's
I mean, I was like Murder Most Foul, and then I was like, oh my god, is this about JFK? And I'm like, is this about JFK the whole time? Like, and I didn't realize that it was 16 minutes long.
Yeah, and it's not like there's no long instrumental breaks or like.
Nope.
I mean, it's like
he's just reciting like poetry for 16 minutes about the death of JFK.
Yeah,
and he brings up Lee Harvey Oswald. He comes at it from so many different angles.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like really fascinating because like a lot of times when I'm prepping for this show, I like put the album on while I'm doing other things. So I'm not like staring at my phone being like, how long is this song?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, this thing's long. And then I'm like, holy shit, we're not even halfway through.
So it was like middle, you were like already into the song before you realized.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be, all right, hold on, strap in.
Yeah.
This is going to be a whole thing. The other out-of-pocket thing, and you already mentioned it, that I thought Key West was kind of an out-of-pocket song.
Okay.
Because it felt like an ad for Key West.
I could see that, yeah.
Like it felt like a very specific ad for a very specific place.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, it felt like he was like, what if Bob Dylan wrote a Jimmy Buffett song?
I could see that.
That's like, I imagine that's like how like, the genesis, he's like.
That's a good way to put that song, I think.
Yeah, it's like what if?
Yeah.
Because I was like, but also it made me laugh because like he is an 80-year-old man, and what do 80-year-old men love?
Florida.
Yeah. Like, so it's funny that Bob Dylan is like this guy, but who is still no different than your average 80-year-old man at this point.
I like
everything
that,
he's been through, he's like, no, I'm still gonna rock a Parrot Head style song about Key West. I was like, this feels out of left
I never
field.
thought of it like that, but that's like perfect.
Yeah. So that was the other out of pocket thing, and then was like. The other thing was like I consistently struggle with Bob Dylan in general is like the writer versus performer. Do you think there's like a... do you think he sets out to be either of those things? Like, do you think he wants to be a performer, or do you think he feels like compelled to perform because he wrote it? Because, like, I would not categorize him as an amazing performer.
Okay, yeah.
He's like, he does it, and like has a very specific way he does it. Like, we've talked about his live shows.
Yeah.
But I wonder if he actually wants to be a performer because, like, again, so many people have covered him, and those covers all rip.
Yeah.
And so he's like a fantastic writer. No one's taking that away from him. But like, do you think he would have had just as much of like a fun, creative life if he strictly wrote for others? Or do you think there was like an actual drive within him to be a performer as well?
I think there is. I think he's probably an introvert. I think he's probably uncomfortable at this point in his life, especially like, not that he's uncomfortable with performing, but he definitely performs how he wants to. I don't think he's not pushed to like. I think he's a singer. Like, he's not. He's not going to get up there and like dance around and like. And he never did, but he's not going to like get up there and like. There's not going to be a light show. There's not going to be.
Because I know I often talk about the differences between art and entertainment.
Yeah.
And like he definitely is like on the side of the Venn diagram that is art.
Yeah.
And like I wonder if you ever felt compelled to like shift it a little bit over to like the performative aspect, like the entertainment. Like, do you think it was ever meant to be entertaining, or was it strictly meant to be like a way to convey message?
I think so, especially. I mean, I don't know about this particular album. I mean, I think there are songs. He's never done Murder Most Foul live. Like that's definitely an album, a song that's, there's some, Goodbye Jimmy Reed's a good live song. Like I think. And a lot of his, like, he has put out songs that are more, songs you could dance to. I wouldn't, compare him to, like, a pop song or anything.
Sure.
But definitely more. I mean, he's done a lot of blues songs. Like, in regards to this album, probably, it's definitely more art. But I think overall, especially his, older recordings and stuff, definitely more, more entertaining, I guess, if you're just like looking for pure entertainment. But this song specifically, probably, or this album specifically, probably, more for the art or like the written. I mean, he's great at writing, and I think how he sings and how he performs them is what I like. But I get it's not like it's not really a general audience kind of sound, I guess.
Yeah, and that's fair. All right, so this does beg the question: do you think he's got another one in him? Like,
I hope so. I mean, so this album came out in 2020. Actually, it came out on the same day I had surgery to have my colon removed.
Oh wow!
So I was waiting for that. Was like what I was waiting for when I woke up with a colostomy bag. I was like, "Where's the album?
Where's the album?
Yeah,
I need something right now."
Yeah, June 19th, 2020. And he typically, he puts an album out every, 5-6 years, something like that. I'm hoping he does. Yeah. Because I still think because
like this could be like his Black Star, like
it could, yeah.
Like his Bowie.
I hope not. I would love for him to come out with another album because I think he's had a great run of albums since like. 1997, he came out with Time Out of Mind, and it won Album of the Year at the Grammys.
Oh, wow.
And then he came out with an album on September 11th, 2001. That was like the follow-up
to the 9/11
terrorist. Yeah. I hope so.
That album's actually titled "Finish the Job." I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. But. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if he's got another one in him. Now I'm gonna be interested to see because like you know, like I
Yeah.
said, this is my first soiree into this.
Yeah.
So
And the thing is, his last tour, he announced like the Rough and Rowdy Ways tour, and like when he announced it, it was like 2022 to 2024, so it just wrapped up. So it's kind of like
okay.
nobody really knows what 2025 is going to hold. But I hope there's a new album, and I hope he keeps touring.
Yeah. I mean, Road Dogg through and through, man.
Yeah.
I do what you love.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to love it at some point.
Yeah.
To do it as much as he does.
Yeah.
So I guess that does add weight to the whole, like, is he a performer or would he have been happy writing? Because, like, obviously
he's not. He's never been a guy that's going to perform to get the audience. He's the guy that like performs and the audience comes to him. He's not performing to
bring an audience
in. Yeah, it's always been the audience comes to him.
Yeah, so I guess that speaks more to like it is like he's something he feels compelled to do versus like something that he would do in order to sell records.
Yeah,
you know. Which is like always fascinating because like the entertainment industry is such a weird place. Like,
yeah,
and like I feel like he's one of those guys that fell into the entertainment industry versus like this is something I'm doing anyway. The rest of y'all can like, you know, sell my tickets, whatever.
Right.
Like, I'm doing this regardless.
Yeah.
Which is always a fascinating route in, and like also like a brave one, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Because like there's so many people like I don't know about you or like myself like in the comedy world like you're doing a lot of stuff to like hopefully something catches. So like you're ultimately doing it for someone else.
Right.
Versus like Bob Dylan through and through doing it for him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which rocks.
He's always done what he wants to do regardless of I mean the thing about the movie is he was like booed off because he went electric, which is like to like the folk community at that time was like representative of like not selling out. I don't know if I want to use that term, but like everything they were against. And he was supposed to be like the, you know, their voice.
Yeah.
And they kind of, I guess, felt betrayed. But he's done that multiple times. He had like a Born Again period where he did like Born Again, like Christian music in the 80s. And then he's kind of like transformed and evolved. Like he's always changing things up.
It feels strange, and I think I'm going to go ahead and transition to our next, because like we're getting off like the low lights, so I'm going to transition into On a Turntable where we start talking about ourselves, like yourself in like context of the album, because like this topic really kind of sparks the question in my head, like it feels brave to live the way he's lived as far like in his creative life where like he seems to be wearing literally all of his decisions on his sleeve. Like the fact that you're like, yeah, he had like a Born Again thing. I can't imagine toying around with Christianity in my spare time, like, and being like, yeah, I think I'm going to talk about this in front of people in real time. It's almost like working out, like it's like open mics, right? Where you're working out new jokes in real time in front of people, or like the headliners that come through and they do, you know, like probably 20 minutes of polished material, and then like the next 40 minutes is like them just hanging out and working stuff out. That is like a level of bravery I'm not sure I'm with. Is there anything in your life where you feel like you do that in real time in front of people, like have that sort of like fuck it vulnerability attitude that he seems to have?
I don't know about a vulnerability. I think at least I guess from what I guess I've learned from Bob Dylan that relates to my life is like as an artist or something, you're never like you never actually are at like a finished point. Like you're always in a state of becoming kind of thing. You're always like changing, and you know sometimes those things do like make you vulnerable. You know, trying something new. He
seems to not really give a damn about trying things new, though, because like in the world we live in right now, as far as like social media and stuff, like in the analytics we have at our disposal, like whenever it like comes to things, like as soon as someone finds something that works for them, they usually just stick to it out of the fear of those analytics, like you know, telling you the other thing. And I feel like that is just more noise in our world, like because like his analytics, you know, when he like went electric, for the people being like boo, you know, so he's doing this in real time, and I find that interesting and like brave. I'm not sure I'm brave enough. Like if like let's say something hits off like this show, I would be like, cool, we're doing that forever now.
There's a risk though to doing that too, because you could run things, you know, you could like
into the ground.
You could run it into the ground. You know, people could lose. You know, it could become stagnant if you're not constant. Or like, and I think that's what I've learned from Bob Dylan. You know, you got to constantly try to not, you know, maybe reinvent yourself or like not be stuck on it is I guess easier said than done though, because especially if something hits and you're like, this is my thing, like this is how I'm.
Is there anything in your creative life that's sort of like evolved over time, similar to like Bob Dylan and his style, like anything that like started as like an idea and then as you did it more and more, it just morphed into something else? Like, because like I have like an example in my life. It's like this podcast is actually like evolution of a blog I did during the pandemic.
Okay.
And like, so because of the failure of the blog, I was like, I'm moving on. Well, one, blogs are dead mediums. Let's be real.
Yeah,
like, it's a hard world to get into.
Yeah.
And it like, but I don't know. It just like talking about music has always been on like top of mind. Like, despite me doing like stand up as my thing and like it's like my hook for the show is like talk to comedians. Like, but I don't know. It's always felt like comedy was an ingredient, not the entree.
Okay.
And so like it all just sort of evolved slowly over time. Because like I know like you're a very prolific person yourself, and you make a lot of things. Is there anything that like you?
I think just in general that idea, like I like doing comedy through a lot of different mediums and not just sticking to one thing too long. And it could be like, I like doing stand up, but not that doesn't. I also like doing animation, drawing cartoons, making videos, sketches, like being able to, be funny through a lot of different formats is what I like. And I think that's, not sticking with one too long where it becomes like, all right, it's the same joke over and over. Being able to like make jokes through a different kind of method, I like.
Yeah, because I feel similarly. Even the live show that you were a part of is like an evolution of like comedians talking about music.
Right, exactly.
You know, and like it's like this is a little more fresh. You
know?
And like it all holds its own place. Where in like his evolution do you think this album is? Like as far as like what do you think he's expressing differently versus like the older stuff? Like what path do you think he took to get here? Like, or is it subtle enough to where it's like you don't even notice it over time?
I think you definitely notice it. It definitely has a different kind of sound than his, even his like last couple records. I think it's just, if you take his generation of musicians, a lot of them have died, and it's just like he's still around.
Yeah.
So this is how he feels. This is what he thinks. It's definitely got the, the guise of like a, an 80-year-old man who's. I don't think it sounds like an 80-year-old man who's angry about being an 80-year-old man. I think it's like an 80-year-old man who's like thinking like he would if he was still like 30 or whatever,
It does feel reflective in a way. Like, I don't know, like it's a very accepting mindset of being 80.
Yeah.
They're like, cause like a lot of people haven't reached that sort of like stage of grief of acceptance.
Right.
Like, where like they're angry about it.
And I definitely think this is an album because it's from an 80-year-old man. I think it's definitely something that I could, as I get older, hopefully, it'll mean different things to me, as I listen to it, as I age and experience life that he's already experienced,
Yeah. Do you feel like he's a voice of a generation? Do you find yourself in that generation? Like that speaks to you very well?
Like I said, I still think he's a relevant artist. And I mean, that's my personal opinion, but I think of society at large, like I think Bob Dylan is still somebody that's worth listening to. Like not just listening to music, but like, listening to as an artist.
Because like I don't find because I listen to a lot of folks who are in or around my own age, and I feel like I'm growing up with them.
Yeah. Versus
like having sort of like you think of him as like a mentor, right?
Yeah.
Where the guy who's older than you, who's seen it all, and he's like telling you all the things. Almost, in his case, a little cryptically. It's like leaving you little clues along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I've never really imagined like having like an older artist and then aging with the product versus the person.
Yeah, I think that's unfortunately how it would have to be because
well, he's 80.
Yeah, exactly. He has this whole career worth of like albums throughout different stages of his life. Like when he went through a divorce, there's an album about that. There's albums about, getting in your 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
Which you can listen to and like interpret differently as you age
Yeah,
as well.
aging with the catalog is like an interesting thing I've never thought about before.
Yeah.
Because like again, I've been so focused on aging with the artist in real time. Like Tyler the Creator is one of those that I think about because like we're around the same age.
Yeah.
And it's been fascinating to watch him turn from like a angry teen to like a made it 30-year-old, like who's just now reflecting on like the landscape ahead of him.
Yeah.
Given what he's been through, and like it's interesting to age with a catalog, the catalog moving with you in time. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
My next question for you is, where do you fall on the writer-performer matrix? Because we've talked about how like Bob like kind of leans is great writer, questionable performer if you ask me, but wondering because he feels compelled to perform. Do you feel that same sort of like urge to perform, or would you rather just write and hang out in like the shadows?
Probably. I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. I think lately, I think my audience has been on Instagram, which I think leans towards the writer part, or like the ideally, like my ideal job is like to have creative control over an animated show. So I guess that would be more so. I'd like to pull the strings. I want to be the person in control.
I feel similarly.
Yeah.
Like my life what I like on the back end of this show is like booking people.
Yeah.
Like booking the live show, making the right choices, being like, this person will be great for this, and like just being able to read the room. Like same with like stand up, a lot of times like building the set list is like a fun part.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
Like I was just like building an experience.
Exactly.
And like I think that's really great. I don't know what my because I don't feel. Because, like, in stand-up, like, I do feel kind of compelled to do it versus write it, even though, like, I am good at helping people with tags. Being like, here, like, I think this is a helpful thing that you could do, that would, like, make this joke work better.
Yeah.
But I do feel, like, compelled to, like, it is fun to do.
It is, yeah.
Like, it is, like, the activity in and of itself, regardless of product, is fun.
Right.
And so I think about this all the time. Like what is my dream job in this world? And like, honestly, this is kind of it. I enjoy this, like the conversation aspect of it all.
Yeah.
Cause like I like learning about people via the music they like. Cause that's like it's like a classic first date question. Like, what's your favorite band?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But it's like, this is like on steroids.
Yeah.
Like, I like want to like people to bring the things they like, because I think what people like is such a great window into who they are. Because like I think we get really, really caught up in like what people hate.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And so like it's like better to like talk about things you like.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like I used to think my dream job would be writing for like television and like not necessarily being on television, because like fame does freak me out in a sense. Like so like because like I talked about this in my last episode with Corinne, where it was like if we could like find a way to like do what we do without like the taxation of fame, like that'd be the best.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because like on the performer matrix, I don't feel like a outstanding performer.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I don't know. I guess like by the classic definition, I guess introvert, because I do find time alone recharging.
Okay.
Or like time with like small groups. Like I don't love big group dynamics. Like I don't know if you like the hang at like mics or anything like that. Like, because I don't like fighting people to speak.
Yeah.
Or like getting in like the riff offs.
Yeah,
like,
me either. No, me either.
Yeah, and I was like, I'd rather just do my thing up there and then bail. But like, you also don't want to be a dick.
Yeah.
And like like not hang out.
Right.
Because it is a very social job. Interesting. My next question. What is the quality you feel you share with Bob Dylan? Like if you were to share a certain quality with him, what do you think you share?
It's a good question. I guess maybe, I don't know. That's a hard question to answer.
Right.
Or
I only ask because like that's when I'm listening to music that I love, it's usually because something resonates with me on a very personal level. So I guess like, that's the question behind the question. What's the thing maybe on this album that resonated with you most that you're like, I wouldn't hate involving this in my life and like sharing this quality with this person?
I think his I don't know, his outlook on his art, how he does his art, I think. I would like to be the same. I think I hope to model myself after how he kind of works.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a hard question to answer because I don't really. He's such a mysterious guy. Like I kind of like that. I kind of like that.
Would you want to be mysterious?
Yeah, but you can't say that because then it's not. That's not a very mysterious.
Yeah. I think like what I would want to take from Bob Dylan after talking with you and like was the acceptance of the way he is at every iteration.
Yeah.
Like I think that is like the quality I would pull from him. Like being an 80-year-old man making an 80-year-old man's album and being 100% okay with that. Like, and just being okay with like the evolution as it goes. Cause I think a lot of people try to hold on to stuff like that they don't need to hold on to.
Yeah.
And like, he seems very accepting, like 100% sees like life passing by, but is like a conscious observer of it rather than someone constantly trying to grab at like something that's already gone.
Damn, that's a great answer. I like that.
Yeah. I would love to be that kind of like person that's like 100% okay with like the landscape moving by.
Yeah. Damn, yeah, that's a really. I loved how you said that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, because like so many like God, because we waste so much time. Like we like wishing something were different than it is right now.
Yeah.
Wishing that something different had happened back then. You know, and so just like it seems very accepting.
Just be easy to accept it.
Yeah, and just maybe skip all those other steps of grief.
Yeah.
Because life is grief.
Yeah.
We can't control the passage of time. You might as well just be cool with it.
Yeah.
All right. Last question of this section. Let's see what I came up with because I don't remember off the top of my head. Okay. Like it's similar to this last question, like as far as like qualities, but what is something you take from Bob Dylan that you try to tuck into your own work?
I think just doing what you want to do and not I try to, not chase the audience, have the audience come to you kind of thing.
Yeah. I think we all really have high ideals of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like I talk about the art being the beacon to your people. I think I've said it like every episode this season. Like the reason we gravitate towards stuff is because someone, sent out the bat signal and you were there to be like, hey, I like that one.
Right.
And we all have those ideals, but like I feel like recently I've kind of gotten lost in the matrix of wanting people to like no, and like changing the way I post, changing the way like I title stuff, trying to like just trick people into
right. It is hard. I feel like it's harder now. I mean, obviously he started out without social media, but I feel like with how much we can know about what people with, like you mentioned the algorithms and stuff, we can see what gets people to click on what or what people are reacting to.
It all feels like a trick, like because like I talk, like I have someone like a YouTube guru, like who like helps me out, like I talk to him, I like bounce ideas off of him. He's a great guy, and like it all just feels like trickery to a certain point, like because like he's like he knows all of like the tips and tricks for like algorithm stuff, right? He's like, but at the end of the day, your content has to be good. Yeah. So it is like tricking someone to get in the door. And then once they're there, being like, haha, like, this is the good stuff. And it just feels skeevy.
It does, yeah.
And I envy Bob Dylan for just being like, eh. And then just like expecting people to be like, this rocks.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, cause like, what was his marketing scheme back in the day? Like, there just isn't one.
No, I mean, and I don't know. They kind of, I remember I read something in some book, like, I guess he was kind of like not, they had a hard time marketing him. So what they came up with is like they would put these stands in like random departments, like departments of the department store, like promoting his album, like in places you wouldn't even think of, like where they would traditionally promote music. I don't remember the specifics on it though, but
because like he was making music all right, so from the beginning of his career, were music videos a thing? Because I know that like really popped in like the 80s.
No, I mean, he started out in the, I think like 62, 63. I think his first album came out in 62.
And they weren't really doing videos to music.
No.
Because I imagine that was like a very large marketing play, was being like putting visuals to sound.
Yeah, I mean, he came up, I mean, I don't know if it was the first music video, but there's a popular video for the song Subterranean Homesick Blues, where he's like standing there with like these big poster boards and like, I mean, it's a really quick song.
I remember the poster boards.
Yeah. And it's like one of the earliest music videos.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, I think really just radio and stuff was
interesting. Yeah. It all feels so much simpler.
Yeah.
Because like now, like it's like such a double-sided coin these days of like, yes, you have so much more access to stuff. And it's so much easier to put stuff out there, but that also makes the noise really loud.
Yeah, it's easier for everybody.
Yeah, and so thus it's like an influx of stuff. And so like I guess back then it was just easier to be different enough to be like, here you go. Like, here's some radio play.
But harder to get,
Harder to get in the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. God. Times are weird.
Yeah. Just accept it.
We're trying. I set a very lofty goal for myself about 2 seconds ago that I'm already faltering on. All right, that's the end of this segment. We got to know you a little better, what your creative dreams are. This brings us to like our traditional record scratch section, which is the mini game. With the movie coming out, the Bob Dylan movie coming out, the like in Timothy Chalamet is like very famously playing Bob Dylan,
right,
to much scrutiny. So this is a game called Alternate Reality, where who do you think the most out of pocket person to play Bob Dylan could be? So like worse than Timothy Chalamet,
okay,
but would still work.
Well, let me think. So there's another Bob Dylan movie where Kate Blanchett played Bob Dylan, which was pretty.
Yeah, that's pretty out of pocket.
Yeah. But without somebody that's not played Bob Dylan, it would be worse than Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, like more like what? Because like, everyone's just like, oh my god, Timothy Chalamet, the guy, the kid from Dune. Yeah, just being all shitty about that. I imagine as like in my head, because like my head went to like Rick and Morty style stuff or like interdimensional cable. You know, where like like all of a sudden it's like Queen Latifah is playing. Yeah, but like who would get away with it?
Let me think. I think I would like to see. So I guess I'll answer it in a different way.
Okay.
I'd like to see a movie about old Bob Dylan, but have Timothy Chalamet
in old face. Like I want to see the Bob Dylan cinematic universe kind of thing where. Oh, okay. We just keep it going.
Yeah. I mean, you could. I mean, this movie is just about like a few years in his career, but there's like so much other like times in his life they could mine for like sequels.
This just becomes a franchise.
Exactly, yeah. But I'd like to see Timothy Chalamet try to play old Bob Dylan. That would be.
Or like, do you remember the movie Boyhood?
Yeah. They filmed a little bit every year.
Yeah, over like 12 years.
Yeah.
They should do that with Timothy Chalamet, and where it just becomes like a saga. And
oh man,
Timothy Chalamet gets older and still plays Bob Dylan.
Hood.
Yeah, Bob Hood. Oh damn. All right, hold on. We're selling this.
Yeah,
we're selling Bob
it.
Hood. Yeah, I would too. Just because it's like an insane undertaking.
Yeah,
that may or may not be worth it. In the end. All right, well, that rocks. Now I'm going to go write Bob Hood. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I've had a blast talking about Bob Dylan.
Yeah. Okay, this is going to come out in a few weeks. So if you have anything upcoming that you want to tell the people about, you should tell the people now.
Nothing upcoming. Just follow me on Instagram at Dumb Celeb Drawings, or you can just look up my name, Alex Leeds.
And that will all be linked in the description. If you're watching this on television, though, Dumb Celeb Drawings is just how it sounds. But other than that, man, that's all I got. Enjoy The People vs. Nickelback on YouTube, whether it's out now or out in a week. Alex did such a great job defending Nickelback as a lawyer. It was amazing. It was super funny.
Yeah, I had a blast.
Yeah, it was a very fun show. I'm excited to get that up on YouTube. professionally filmed. So we'll get that up soon enough. But in the meantime, go check out any episodes that I've talked about before. And we'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.